Hi group! We are talking this week about psychosocial theories in higher education, and they basically examine the content of development. In other words, the important issues people face as their lives progress, such as how to define themselves, their relationships with others, and what to do with their lives. Tim, you did a really good job of going through the Evans book in chapter 3 and looking at Erickson's theory of development. Also, Marcia's 4 stages and then Jocelyn's 4 stages, and then as well as hitting on Chikrin's 7 vectors. And I really enjoyed this reading, this week's reading. I don't know, I just feel like I could relate with it more in what I already do in my field. And it seemed to click a little bit more with me. In psychosocial theories help student affairs professionals understand the issues facing individuals at various points in their lives. And I think that's what I can relate with the most, especially the reading about, in Harper and Quay, about the international students and the challenges they face when they take classes at post-secondary institutions in the U.S. It really focused on specific issues that international students face when they begin school in the U.S., and how we can help guide them as student affairs professionals to engage in a positive way and try and help promote that. There were a few different theories that were touched on about international students, and it was interesting to know that international students, they obviously have hardships that are prominent in the U.S. when they attend college here, and I think, and it did point out this in the Harper and Quay book, that many times international students are overlooked on campuses, and I guess because they're a minority, and but I feel like they're overlooked, even though it's stated in Harper Quay that Banning Cummings reported in 2001 the U.S. enrolls the largest number of international students in the world, which is about 28%. And even though we enroll the highest amount of international students in the world, and they usually pay more because they're out of country, and at most institutions, just like if you're out of state, you usually pay double, or you're going to pay more. You're going to pay even more if you're out of country. So even though we have a high volume of international students, they pay more, they still do not get the support that they need, why they're on our college campuses in the U.S., which is an injustice to them. And they are a vital part of the post-secondary institution because they pay tuition. They actually pay out of pocket for their tuition, and it's usually more. So this, in turn, is a jump, and it's vital for our U.S. post-secondary system to have these students. Harper and Quay, they give examples. Let me back up. Well, I can really relate with international students because, like I said, in what I do, in my job at my institution, I deal with international students, and it's sometimes there's specific things that I have to ask, and I think a lot of times they either are embarrassed because they're international students, or they almost have a defense mechanism when I talk to them, and I think it's because of how they've been treated before. So I think it's important that we really help these international students. because they are such a part of our post-secondary institution. And Harper and Quay really put out there about the problems that international students face. They have to deal with difficulties without having their family or their close friends, which for me personally would probably be the hardest, to not have that close support system. They have to deal with tuition costs, like I've already touched on, and documentation issues. You know, most colleges have them get an I-20 for documentation, but the federal and state laws have really gotten tighter since 9/11 and terrorist acts and different things, and they've imposed more rigor or more standards for having documentation on them. So it's put up more of a hardship on the students as well. Harper and Quay also provide great examples of how to engage students, in I'm sorry, I lost my place. They also touched on the safety threats, which of course after 9/11 is, you know, it's just fear. It comes from fear, and prejudice, of not knowing, you know, these students, where they come from, what they're doing, and I'm sure they feel isolated and alone. And Harper and Quay described this as a Generation 9/11 problem. And it's just a fear and uncertainty toward international students that has really increased since the terrorist act of 9/11. Stephen and Stephen really touch on the integrated threat theory of prejudice, and they do a good job of describing the 4 basic classes of threats and that lead to high level of discomfort. And they begin with a negative stereotype, just not understanding the person and their background and having your own biases and judgment, and then leading up to or escalating to the symbolic and culture threats that accompany that and relate to the difference in morals and values. He also touches on transition theory in this chapter in Harper and Quay, by Sargent and Schlossberg, and the surprise and sense-making theory. Both of these help student affairs understand when and how to intervene with international students and to help them in their situations. Harper and Quay also gives great examples about engaging students, which really builds on the surprise and sense-making theory, Lewis's theory, and it helps to facilitate effective preparation and ongoing adjustment, such as family-style peer mentoring to help get that support for these international students, a pre-orientation to help get them, before they actually come to college, what they really need to know. And in conclusion, I think we as student affairs professionals, we can help international students because they are important to the U.S. post-secondary education system, just to help them have a better transition and a better experience while studying in the U.S. It's also our ethical duty, and you know, to help enrich their opportunities while they're here. And as far as Tim, you asked about what we could do, what program we thought we could implement that would help, that would help further. What program do we need at VSU to help develop and further students? I think if we have a program built around to help students understand each other that are from different backgrounds, especially international students. So I think something that we could do is maybe have, of course, our program set around walking in another student's shoes. So say for instance, if I had to walk in an international student's shoes for a week, just to see what that's like, to see their challenges and their obstacles and how they're so much different than something I may take for granted for every day, because I don't may not have as many challenges, or what type of challenges they have. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on this week's chapter, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.